Welcome to the Lion's Share podcast, where we break down today's most impactful research and bring fresh insights from the academic frontier straight to you.
Today, we are wrestling with, well, what you might call the apex predator of modern information warfare, the fake review.
Yeah, we're talking about that strategic erosion of trust. It really underpins the entire digital economy, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. I mean, think about how much consumers rely on ratings now for almost every decision. Where to eat, who to hire.
Exactly. And when these platforms fail to police themselves effectively, that trust just evaporates.
Right.
There's that quote from TripAdvisor's head of trust and safety, Becky Foley. She really nailed it. Trust in our platform is earned, not given.
That's the core of it.
And that's what we're diving into today, how platforms actually earn it. Our source is a paper from the Journal of Marketing Research called Guardians of Trust, How Review Platforms Can Fight Fakery and Build Consumer Trust. It's by Beck, Wuyts, and Jab.
A really solid piece.
Yeah, and our mission here is to pull out those specific designable levers that platforms can actually use to fight fakery and, build up that crucial consumer trust. And I think what's immediately important, especially for our listeners, is the academic framing here. This isn't just about, buyer trusting seller. The paper really positions this as a complex network governance problem. You've got the platform, the reviewers, the businesses being reviewed, and then the consumers reading the reviews. 4 distinct players.
Right. It's not just a simple two-way street.
Not at all. And the real scholarly challenge, the interesting part, is how you instill order and trust across all those different relationships at the same time.
Okay, and we should probably clarify the scope, too. We're focusing specifically on review platforms, right? Like Yelp, Angie, maybe Health Grades. Places where the reviews are the main event.
Exactly. They're the true guardians of trust, as the paper calls them, which makes them different from, say, exchange platforms like Amazon or Walmart.
Where the reviews are sort of secondary to the sale.
Precisely. Reviews are important there, obviously, but they serve the transaction. On Yelp, the review is the product, in a sense. Our focus is squarely on those primary review platforms.
Got it. Okay, so let's unpack the main threat here. Fakery. The paper defines it pretty clearly: deliberately misleading readers to unfairly promote or, damage reputations.
Standard definition, yeah. But the scale, that's what's startling.
Well, yeah, the paper cites TripAdvisor again, reporting that something like 97% of the fake reviews they identified came from someone linked to or paid by the selling firm.
97%. Just pause on that for a second. That isn't just random disgruntled customers or trolls.
No, that's organized.
It's highly organized, corporate opportunism. That finding alone completely reframes the governance challenge, doesn't it?
It really does. It tells you where the main battleground is.
Which leads us directly into their core research questions. First off, what specific governance mechanisms actually build platform trust? And they're quite rigorous in defining platform trust for, the academics listening. It's the consumer's belief the platform can be relied on for accurate information and will fulfill its obligations.
So it covers both the platform trying hard, the benevolence bit, and actually being good at the competence part.
Exactly. Intent and efficacy. And given that the problem is this network opportunism,
the solution has to be network governance mechanisms. Levers that use that complexity, that network structure, to create order. Makes sense.
Precisely. And then the second question, which is, I think, super relevant for marketing managers, especially with privacy regulations tightening everywhere.
The identity question.
Yes. Do these robust governance mechanisms substitute for needing identity disclosure to build trust? That whole face dilemma. Do you force reviewers to show their faces, their names, or can you protect privacy?
Because if you can build trust without forcing people to give up anonymity, wow. That's huge from a strategy perspective.
It really is. So to figure this out, they developed this governance toolkit, 5 key practices. We should probably break those down.
Yeah, let's do it. Maybe group them by who they're aimed at. So first, the ones targeting the firms, the source of that 97% of fakery.
Good idea. So first up is monitoring. This is basically the platform signaling very clearly that it's actively checking reviews, using verification systems, whether that's algorithms or, actual people.
It's the platform showing it has patrols out, basically, flexing his muscles.
Right. And then, related but distinct, is exposure.
Okay, what's that?
This is where the platform gets tough publicly. It actually exposes the selling firms that break the rules. Think of Yelp's consumer alerts program, those big warning labels on listings.
Okay. So it's not just monitoring behind the scenes, it's public shaming.
Exactly. And that's powerful because it signals directly to the consumer, look, we have your back. We're willing to punish bad actors, even if they're paying customers. That builds trust.
Okay, so monitoring and exposure target the firms. What about the reviewers themselves? How do you encourage good behavior there?
Well, that's where community building comes in. This involves the platform actively helping reviewers and consumers connect. Think forums, Q&A sections, ways for users to interact around the reviews.
The platform acting as a connector.
Yeah, the paper uses a term, tertius iungens, the third party who joins. The platform brings otherwise disconnected people together, fostering a sense of community around honest reviewing.
And the payoff for the reviewer in that community.
That leads to the next one, status endowment.
Like badges and ranks.
Precisely. Selectively giving credibility badges or special status like Yelp's Elite Squad to reviewers who are consistently helpful and presumably honest.
So you're using social status as an incentive.
Exactly. It taps into what sociologists call middle status conformity. People strive to meet the group's norms in this case, honest reviewing, to gain or keep that valued status.
Clever. Okay, so that's 4. Monitoring, exposure, community building, status endowment, and the 5th.
The 5th is the one they're testing against, identity disclosure, simply requiring reviewers to reveal personal info, name, location, maybe a picture.
The classic approach, really. Okay, so we have the toolkit. Now, the big question, what did the studies actually find? Let's talk magnitude. How well did these things work?
Right. The punchline from their main studies, particularly study 1 and 5, finding number 1. All 5 practices do significantly boost platform trust. They all work, to some degree.
But I sense a but coming.
But the size of the effect varied quite a bit. The firm-oriented mechanisms, monitoring and exposure, had the biggest positive impact, by a noticeable margin.
Really? Bigger than community or status?
Yes. And interestingly, identity disclosure. It had the most modest effect of the 5. Significant, but the smallest boost.
Wait, hang on. So targeting the firms, the presumed bad actors, with monitoring and exposure packed a bigger punch than fostering community or giving out status badges to reviewers.
That's what the data showed.
That feels slightly counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Mm.
A lot of theory emphasizes building social capital among users. Why would policing the firms be more effective for trust than engaging the reviewers?
I think it goes back to that 97% figure. When the opportunism is perceived to be so heavily concentrated among the sellers, consumers seem to respond most strongly to actions that directly address that specific threat.
So it's pragmatic. Consumers want the platform to act like a strong referee, first and foremost.
It seems that way. They want the channel captain, as it were, to visibly police the most likely source of the problem. Addressing the root cause directly yields the biggest trust dividend in this kind of network.
Okay, that makes sense when you put it like that. And study 2 dug into the why, right? The mechanism.
Yes. Study 2 confirmed the pathways. These governance practices, along with identity disclosure, build trust primarily by doing 2 things. Decreasing consumers' expectations of selling firm opportunism.
Makes sense. They see the policing, they expect less cheating.
Right, and enhancing perceptions of reviewer credibility. They see the status badges or the community vetting, they trust the reviewers more. Both pathways lead to higher overall platform trust.
Okay, now for the really juicy part, I think. The substitution effect. This could be the answer to that privacy paradox we talked about.
Absolutely. This is probably the most actionable finding for managers. They looked at the interaction effects and found significant negative interactions, meaning that exposure, community building, and status endowment all act as substitutes for identity disclosure. When those governance mechanisms are strong, the positive effect of forcing identity disclosure basically disappears.
How much does it disappear?
The impact of identity disclosure on trust was reduced by over 75% and became statistically insignificant when those other mechanisms were present.
Wow, over 75%. So if you do a good job with public exposure, building community, and rewarding good reviewers, you don't need to force people to reveal their identities to get trust.
That's precisely the implication. It's a massive strategic insight. Platforms can protect reviewer privacy, dodge that face dilemma by focusing on these other robust governance tools instead. You can have anonymity and trust.
That's huge. And they back this up with real-world data too, right?
Yeah.
Study 3.
They did. They looked at 25 actual review platforms and measured how many of these practices they used. And they found a significant positive correlation between the number of practices adopted and key platform success metrics, things a DBA or PhD student would care about. Domain authority, Alexa rank, backlinks, organic site traffic.
So implementing this governance toolkit isn't just good for trust. It actually correlates with real-world platform performance and visibility.
Seems so. More governance practices, better performance metrics.
Okay, thinking about those performance results, doesn't that strongly suggest there's a real first-mover advantage here? If you're a platform and you really lean into this channel captain role now, implementing the full toolkit,
I'd say absolutely. Institutional trust built through these kinds of visible governance actions becomes a really sticky competitive advantage. It's hard for competitors to replicate quickly. And since the study linked success to the number of practices, not just one specific silver bullet, it implies that platforms investing comprehensively across monitoring, exposure, community, and status are building a trust foundation that laggards will struggle to catch up to.
right, it's about the whole system. But there was one exception in the substitution findings, wasn't there? Monitoring didn't substitute for identity disclosure.
That's right. H4A was rejected. Exposure, community, and status endowment substituted, but monitoring on its own did not.
Why would that be? If you know the platform is monitoring, why would you still feel the need for the reviewer's identity?
This is a really important nuance, I think, especially theoretically. Monitoring is largely a back-end, sort of private activity. You, as the consumer, are told it's happening, so maybe you trust the platform's intent, its benevolence.
But you don't see it working directly on a specific review.
Exactly. You lack that immediate, observable cue about the quality or authenticity of the content itself. Identity disclosure, however flawed, provides that visible shortcut. Oh, it's a real person.
So it's about observability. Exposure is observable, you see the warnings. Community is observable, you see the interactions. Status is observable, you see the badge.
Precisely. Those three provide visible signals of governance outcomes. Monitoring signals effort, but not necessarily outcome in a way the consumer can easily see for each review. That lack of visibility means it can't fully replace the heuristic function of identity cues on its own.
That distinction between communicating effort versus providing observable outcomes is a really neat theoretical contribution.
Okay.
Moving towards critique and what's next. The study also showed these governance practices are actually really salient to consumers.
Right? Yes, study 4 and 5 showed consumers rank these platform practices as equally important, sometimes more important than traditional cues like the number of reviews, the consistency of ratings, or even stated reviewer expertise. People care about the platform's role.
Which makes sense if they understand the fakery problem. Okay, for the scholars listening, what are the limitations or next steps?
Well, the substitution finding raises interesting questions. For instance, platforms like Yelp do require their elite squad members, high-status reviewers, to disclose identity.
But the research suggests that might be unnecessary, over-governing, perhaps.
Potentially, yes. If status endowment substitutes for identity disclosure, forcing disclosure on top of status might not add trust and could even deter some reviewers.
So how would you actually test that? What's the research designed to figure out the cost-benefit of making elite reviewers reveal themselves?
Ooh, good question. You'd probably want a field experiment, ideally. You'd need to compare platform trust and reviewer behavior between two groups of high-status reviewers. One group must disclose identity, the other is given the option to remain pseudonymous.
And you'd measure.
You'd measure overall platform trust perceptions among consumers viewing reviews from both groups. But critically, you'd also track the reviewer's behavior. Are the anonymous option reviewers more willing to post negative but potentially more honest reviews? Maybe they fear less retaliation?
So if trust stays high with the anonymous option and you get more candid feedback, then the cost-benefit flips towards not requiring disclosure, even for elites.
Exactly. That would be a powerful finding. Another area is implementation cost.
Right, you mentioned Trustpilot.
Yeah, the paper notes Trustpilot wanted to implement community features but lacked the software capacity at the time. Future marketing models need to get real about this. It's not just does it work, but what's the ROI considering the investment needed?
So incorporating the platform redesign costs into the utility calculation for each governance mechanism, that makes perfect sense for practical strategy.
Definitely. And we also need to think beyond just the consumer perspective. How do these practices impact the reviewers themselves? Fear of retaliation is real. Or the firms being reviewed, how do they react? We've only really looked at one side of the network here.
Lots more to explore there. Okay, let's try to wrap this up. What's the core takeaway here?
For me, the big lesson is that building platform trust isn't just about having good filters running silently in the background. It's about strategic, visible network governance.
Targeting both the likely culprits, the firms, through monitoring and especially exposure, and shaping reviewer behavior through community and status.
Precisely. And the critical contribution, I think, is showing how effective governance can directly tackle the root problem of organized fakery, And by doing that well, it makes the privacy trade-offs associated with forcing identity disclosure largely unnecessary for achieving high levels of trust. Cure the disease, don't just treat the symptom.
A powerful message for platform managers. Okay, final thought for our listeners to chew on. If this kind of network governance, especially things like exposure and status endowment, is so effective at building trust, how might we adapt those concepts for emerging digital markets where the intermediary is the information itself? Thinking about, say, specialized AI agents that review products or services for you. How do you build trust in them using these principles?
Applying exposure and status to an AI. That's a fascinating challenge, something definitely worth exploring.
Thanks for tuning into the Lion's Share podcast. If you enjoyed today's discussion, share it with a friend and join us next time for more ideas worth talking about. We'll see you next time.